What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 9 of the Scoops podcast. I am here with co host Gino. Say what's up, Gino.
What's going on, people?
Lots to get to today. Before we get to any of it, we are going to start with just a quick thank you to the fans that watch our stuff, read our stuff, listen to our stuff. We're extremely grateful for all the positive feedback and negative feedback, constructive criticism. It's all extremely motivating and helpful to the stuff that we do, and we listen to all of it and we talk about all of it. The last draft that we did got really good reception among the people who replied to it and who watched it. So I'm really grateful about that, and everyone that participated in it is as well.
Yeah. Big shout out to the fans. Big shout out to the supporters. Like Daniel said, even if you give a like, even if you vote on a poll, just view the Instagram stories, whatever. I mean, it's all love, and we definitely appreciate it.
Definitely. Um, I mean, without further ado, we can just jump right into it.
Let's do it. I'm
The
not a
f-
floating head, by the way. I have a body, just in case anybody is wondering.
you look like a very classy art purchaser person, like someone that
Yeah,
goes to
right?
art shows and it's like, you know
I
what?
just
I'll
need like a
buy
little
that one streak of green for $1 million
I
with
need
some
like a little
wine.
wine glass,
Yep.
and some cheese on a
On a
toothpick.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um all right, basketball. The
Mhm.
the first thing I wanted to get to was just a small point of clarification about a certain Greek freak. Um,
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to correlation with this show and podcast and the drafts that we've done. Um, the Greek freak Giannis, he is a very good basketball player. He is one of the top basketball players in the NBA, and I don't think there is any denying that. Um, and there has been some Giannis slander from certain people, and even a small amount from all of us at some point, whether it was in the
Yeah.
drafts or on different podcasts or things like that. Um, Especially from Antoine, and Antoine's not afraid to admit it, so I'm not afraid to talk about it. Antoine doesn't even think Giannis is like a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA. And I mean, we'll get into that with him at some point in the future. And we've all talked to him about it too. He just doesn't like Giannis, and I think we all have our own little reservations about Giannis. He just outright does not like him. Um,
Mhm.
and I just want to clarify, and Gino can chime in after if you have something to say about it too. But I just want to clarify, Giannis is definitely one of the most dominant, probably the most dominant player in basketball right now. Just physically and the stuff that he does. The guy's averaging 29 and 11, and that's not something you can really just overlook. He's got pros and cons to his game, just like anyone else that's really in the NBA or playing basketball. But I think it's fair to say that the pros in his game definitely outweigh the cons when it comes to what he can do for your team. He's helped the Bucks get to the number one seed in the East so many times. And then, I mean, there's cons like we talk about his jumper all the time, and that being really hindering to him. And his performances in the playoffs, while some of them there's reason to it, like injuries or anything like that. But I mean, another word for injuries, or another word for reasons, excuse me, uh is excuses. Gino, I mean, anything else you want to add? I mean, we're kind of we've dug at him a lot, and I want to kind of dial it back and be like, hey, this guy, even if we have dug at him, he is a good basketball player and a top basketball player in the NBA.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I give Giannis a lot of criticism, particularly for his playoff performances, which to me, to be honest, I think are still warranted. We all realize that he needs to step up when the time comes. Um, I like Giannis. I think I mean, from what I've seen from him, how he talks, how he portrays himself, he sounds like a great guy. He's kind of like one of those
Definitely.
underdog stories. Um, he's European, so it's he kind of brings like a unique style. Um, I think he's a good role model for kids. He's a hard worker. He stays out of trouble. So Giannis, like the individual, I think is an amazing person in terms of the image of the NBA.
Hmm.
Um, I think, to be honest, and I don't know, refresh my memory if somebody comes up to you, but I think Giannis to me is probably the most dominant player physically since probably Shaq.
I mean, that's
Would you agree?
that's part of why Shaq gave him the nickname Superman.
Yeah. So I think with that, Giannis is just kind of like, if Giannis played in Shaq's era, I don't think we'd really be having this conversation.
Hmm.
But with the whole switch of, being able to shoot now, I mean, shooting is essential, especially from the three. It's almost kind of like Giannis is in the wrong generation.
Yeah.
Um, so the expectations of him to adapt to today's lifestyle and how they play the game, um, you kind of want to give him some slack, but again, at the same time, he's got to perform. I mean, whether it's getting the jumper or whether it's knocking down threes, just even slightly consistently, um, in order to truly be one of the great greats, you got to kind of adapt to the playing style. You got to be dominant, regular season, playoff time, crunch time, big games, all that stuff.
Is if Giannis was in like the 80s, do you think he goes down as one of the best of all time? I think
I
with the
think so.
passing of time, I think people look back at Giannis in the 80s and are like, man, that guy was one of the most, dominant players of all time. Kind of like how we talk about some of the old guys from that time period and even before.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I don't think we really, I mean, Giannis's build, like we rarely ever see that. Let alone if you take it back to the
When have we
80s.
ever seen that? When have you ever seen a seven
Yeah,
footer that strong and that long move the way that
yeah,
he moves and play the
yeah,
way that he plays? Like him and Russ are two players that every time they're on the court, they go 100 miles per hour. I
hmm,
remember Giannis getting, flack and hate for being in the Olympics for Greece and going all out. And people were like, "Oh, he should save himself and not play that hard because he needs to worry
yeah,
about the playoffs and about the Bucks." And it's like, I don't think you realize some players don't have that off switch. Like it's not in them
yeah,
to slow down. Every time they go out and play basketball, they only know one way, and that's just playing as hard as you can to try and win.
yeah. And I mean, that's another thing, like I said about Giannis's character. Like Greece, can you name one other person on the Greek national team? Because I can't.
Thanasis was his brother on the Greek national team.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I mean, like you said, anytime he's on the court, no matter who's surrounding him, teammates, whatever, coaches, he's given it 100%. So I mean, you got to give him credit in that regard.
And I think something that people tend to overlook, especially analysts, I mean, and people and analysts that give him, a lot of negative talk. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something people kind of either forget or fail to mention. He is just hitting the point in his career where most people consider your prime years. Like
Hmm.
he's just starting to hit there. And the guy last year won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. Like he's
Yeah.
just starting to get there. So there's no limit to the stuff that Giannis can potentially learn or add to his game or grow because I mean he just has so much time left and we've seen how much work he's willing to put into his body, how he transformed from when he came into the league. He didn't look like that when he came into the league. He transformed his body and how
Yeah.
dominant he's become. So I mean there's just no limit. And I think it's a safe bet to say he will at least have one ring by the time he retires.
Whew.
I'm not afraid to put it. I'll bet that to anyone. He'll have at least one. He's only 26 years old. He's too good not to have one. Whether it's on the Bucks, whether he goes somewhere else, even
Hmm.
if it's like an old man ring where he's still like somewhat usable
Yeah.
in his later years. I could see him getting. I would bet on him getting at least one.
I'm willing to take that bet.
You don't
I
think
don't
he'll
think he
win
does.
one? You don't think he'll
Nah,
win one? I
nah.
mean,
I think the problem with Giannis, and I don't think he will, because again, to big up his character, I think he is um, kind of hard pressed on getting better and continuing to improve and stuff. I just hope he doesn't get complacent. I hope that he doesn't see that, okay, now I'm winning defensive player of the year, I'm winning MVPs and stuff. I hope he doesn't see that as, okay, I'm good. I'm good enough. I'm already at the top. As long as I continue to do what I'm doing now, but at a little bit of a better um, at a better level, he needs to improve. He needs to get the jumper. He needs. Nobody's expecting him to shoot, 45% from three, but you need to kind of keep those defenses, a little bit honest, and they need to, kind of respect your shot. And I know he's young, but he's got to prove it to me, man. He's got to prove it.
he definitely has to prove it. I mean, he has not particularly done well in the playoffs, and he's warranted a lot of negativity because of it. But I mean, he is
Yeah.
not the first great player to have his struggles in the early years of their career. Plenty of greats have. And I mean, I think Giannis will just be on that list of he'll eventually either be paired with the right people or hit some other level where he'll get there. I'm just from listening to how he talks, and I mean how he carries himself and how he has improved. How the skinny kid from Greece getting drafted from the Bucks, and everyone thinking this. I mean, this kid might be something, but he's not going to be like that great to what he is now. I mean, I truly think that he'll be able to win one. And I mean, we've been so critical of Giannis, but I mean, can you think of another player now whose the difference in the gap between first option and second option is as big as Giannis, especially for a team that we consider a contender?
Yeah, nah.
So
But I mean, to play devil's advocate, I do think they've surrounded him with amazing bench pieces. I mean, they filled out that roster perfectly, not only for his style, but just in individual quality players. The Bucks have surrounded him with talent. So even though he might not have that 1A, 1B type player, he does have, a full kind of roster that kind of makes up for it. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you. I do think that if he had kind of an upgrade on that second option, who knows what would happen.
what I'm my memory is, I hope my memory serves me correct here. I remember there was a game in the playoffs with Shaq and Kobe. I think Shaq fouled out and Kobe stepped up.
Mm.
Giannis got hurt in last year's playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Middleton stepped up for a game, but they still lost.
Yeah.
Like that second option is so important. Like so important. You want to talk about players like LeBron James had just the perfect complementary piece to the type of player he was in Dwayne Wade. And Jordan and Pippen, like you need that second guy. You really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't want. I feel like we were saying this years back with Westbrook. I mean, you mentioned him earlier in this conversation. I feel like everybody was kind of saying, you surround Westbrook with the right pieces. He's an MVP. He's putting up triple doubles for the season. Like, oh my God, it was Westbrook crazy everywhere.
I remember.
And
Some
then
people are still that
everybody
way.
just exactly. And then, everybody just kind of like, okay, Westbrook can't shoot, so we're going to let him shoot. And then it kind of steamrolled into this thing where it's like, okay, maybe he's really just not as effective as we think he is. And then now look at Westbrook. I mean, we even talked about it on another podcast. Like people are saying Westbrook might not even be picked up. So I don't want the Giannis situation to turn exactly like the Westbrook situation
I
because
think it's a
they're very similar.
little it I think it's a little different of a situation
Mm-hmm.
just because of the freak that Giannis really is. Like who he is, how he plays, he will dominate basketball for as many years as he's especially in his prime. Like the dude,
Mm-hmm.
they won the game at either the last game or the game before that off a Giannis dunk where he caught the ball, took 2 steps and dunked it. Like not 2 steps from the 3-point line, okay? Took 2 steps from there, dunked it. And it's not like a big man. It's not like a big, slow dude. It's a quick, at 7 feet tall, 2 steps to the basket. Like the dude
Yeah.
is unbelievable. And at the same time, I don't want to like too much Chris Middleton slander. Like he's a solid player. He can hoop, he can shoot, he can score. And I mean, hats off to Chris Middleton, but at the same time, I mean, I think he's more suited as maybe a third option for a team than a
Yeah.
second option, something like that. But I mean, but yeah, I felt like there was a lot of Giannis slander, and I was one of the first people to talk about, you know, especially in the drafts, like in the drafts when we're comparing different
Mm-hmm.
players and players like KD or LeBron or even like Clay and Steph, not just better players all around, but proven players that have made it to the mountaintop with their respective teams. Like you're gonna obviously argue for those players more and want to choose those players more before getting to a Giannis.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want it to feel like we hate Giannis because we don't.
Yeah.
He's his past playoff and and their team and how they've done and his jumper, like there are cons and there are other players I'd consider before Giannis, but Giannis is still a top talent in the NBA, and I don't want it to seem like we feel otherwise, or at least I feel otherwise.
Yeah. I think two more things to add. One, about the freak comment that you talked about. I don't know, man. I think we said the exact same thing about Westbrook because I remember a clip. It was a play a couple years back, I think when he was on the Thunder, where they inbounded it and he got all the way down court. I think it was like in like 2.5 seconds or
I remember
something,
that.
or he took like 4 steps
I remember
and
that.
got to the basket and dunked, and people were like, what is going on? Like this guy's crazy."
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to the freak comment, yeah, I do understand, but I don't know, man. I see a lot of similarities between him and Westbrook. Um, and then the second point I want to make is, I guess this is kind of a criticism of the MVP whole concept, because I think when people think MVP, they immediately think, okay, he's the best player in the NBA. And that's, I mean, I'm not going to say rarely, but that's hardly ever the case. Um, I've been extremely critical on the MVP voting process in the past.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, especially now when you take Giannis into account and you see his flaws. Um, I'm one of the people that says I think LeBron should have won MVP for the past 10 years. So,
Yeah, and we talked about that
you
on a
know,
previous podcast.
yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of different things. Um, but yeah, I think we do need to acknowledge Giannis's greatness. I just think, the MVP thing, it makes you think he's, top two, top three. But in reality, I mean, at least for me personally, I have him probably like on the back end of the top 10. Um, but that's just me.
I just feel like we'll be 10 years from now. Giannis will be 36. He'll have a ring, maybe two, and people will be talking about him like, oh, he is one of the craziest things we've ever seen come to basketball, so dominant, and he has a ring to back it up. And it'll be like, I mean, back then, weren't you one of those guys that said he was never going to win anything and that he had no jumper and that's how he was always going to be?
Yeah.
I'm
But if
willing to.
he doesn't,
I'll sync. Yeah, I'll sync with that ship.
yeah,
I mean, look at the guy I'm syncing with. The dude is 7 feet, moving in a way we've never seen before. I mean, he's only 26. I'll take a bet on the kid. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
yeah. It's just if he doesn't, that's a lot of like failed, untapped potential, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
So he's just, I mean, bottom line, he's got to improve, but at the same time, we do recognize his greatness.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine, like we said, he's so young. There's so many different possible scenarios that go down the line. Someone coming to him going to someone else, Chris Middleton accepting an offer someone else, and another second option coming to him. There's so many different
Yeah,
ways that things can go down. And I mean, especially in the last couple of years, free agency and signing and stuff like that's been crazy in the NBA. So it's not like you can say, oh, that something like that will never happen, because you really never know. I mean, imagine if he gets paired up with a killer like Devin Booker or someone. Like imagine if he
mm,
really gets paired up with someone that Giannis may have a bad game, or he may be getting exposed or something. All right, let me help pick up the slack. And then Giannis,
yeah,
he'll have 30 points and 16 rebounds at the end of that game. He just needs a little help at this point or that point. It's like
yeah.
there's so many different possibilities that um that like I said, I'll take that bet. All right, we're going to move along to something that happened a couple days ago between you and a
Mm.
friend of ours, Deontay. We got into a little Twitter beef. It was pretty funny towards the end. I will go ahead and read off the tweets and let y'all know how it happened. I believe it was something I sent you on Instagram. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it led to you talking about Tatum, and
Mm.
I just wrote down and tweeted the next day what you told me, basically summing up what you told me on Instagram, which was, here it is. Um, Tatum will be better than Kawhi all time. Mark my words. Tatum might never get a ring, but he'll go down with a better overall individual career. Kawhi won't win another ring as the number one option.
Yeah, I stand by those words.
You stand by those words, all right? And let me
Hmm.
show you what Deontay said in response to it. He said, to say Kawhi won't win another chip as the number one option is wild. Saying Tatum will be better than Kawhi isn't much of a bold statement. It'll come down to playoff success and rings. And after his tweet, or after I tweeted what Deontay said in response, as a joke, I said the beef is real, and Deontay said there's no beef. I said, come on, of course there's no beef. There's no beef in most of these Twitter beefs that people have. It's usually just for the views. Um, we're going to make it a big scandal. You'll come out with a mixtape dissing Gino and Tatum. TMZ will post a picture of Gino going out to eat with Antoine with the caption reading betrayal. I have the next 3 months already mapped out in my head.
Yeah, and we're the fourth month. We're doing a boxing match like Jake Paul and Floyd
You're opening
Mayweather.
up for him. You're opening up for him and
Yeah,
Mayweather. Actually, I
we're on
just
the
gotta call
undercard.
I gotta call the people, and
Yeah,
we'll
Don
book
King
it.
called me. He said he got it all figured out, so we're good.
Yo, I don't know. Deontay has some long arms, bro. He's got a reach, and I'm putting $100 round two, clean knockout, bro. He's literally just gonna come completely around you and knock you out from like this side of the head.
Bro, you bet on Giannis winning a ring. Now you're betting on Deontay. You're losing a lot of money. That's all I'm saying. Somebody taking your money,
Maybe I
bro.
make bad bets. Maybe I make bad bets. Okay. But yes, your side of the argument and any response you want to make.
Yeah, no. So I think I do need to kind of clarify because it was kind of out of the blue. Um, I think if you're taking into account rings and personal accolades and stuff like that, I think it's probably safe to say that as of right now, Kawhi has the better chance of being the best or the better player in terms of those two. But I
Mhm.
just think Kawhi was a late bloomer. Tatum was a little quicker to kind of establish himself on the scene.
Yeah.
I think with Tatum, if he continues playing at this level, I think longevity is on his side. Whether he wins those rings or those personal accolades like Kawhi did, I'm not entirely sure. Um, I think Kawhi, obviously at his peak, is probably going to be the better defender than any Tatum, any season that he's going to put up. Just because Kawhi was so dominant as a defensive force. Um, I think Tatum offensively, I think he's a little bit more polished than Kawhi. I think he's a little bit more aggressive. I think Tatum's more likely to kind of get his when they need it. I've seen Kawhi kind of, I'm not going to say fold, but I've seen him when the pressure is on, he's kind of a little bit too passive. And I think you get the opposite with Tatum. Although Tatum is a little bit passive, he does those little step back threes or whatever. But again, Tatum is younger. You kind of expect him to work through those little kinks as time goes on. So I think we've seen kind of peak Kawhi. I think this is what you're going to get. His last days in San Antonio and his Toronto days. I think that was peak.
But can Tatum, even if it's longevity, can that resume that he will eventually have at the end of his career match up to 2 rings on 2 different teams? That speaks to the best player, like who like he was the best player in Toronto for sure. I don't think he was the best player in San Antonio, but
Yeah.
He was important for them and what he did
Yeah.
against LeBron. Um, the best player on that team. I mean, that team was just such a team. It's hard to argue who the best player was for sure, 100%. But I mean, in Toronto, I don't think it was really much of a doubt. And winning a ring on 2 teams and being important pieces for those 2 teams, I mean that speaks to how great a player Kawhi is.
Yeah. I mean, I messaged this. I don't know if I messaged or commented to you, but I said if Tatum was on that Spurs team, they would three-peat. And again, I stand by my words because he wasn't the best player on that team,
You
but
commented it.
he was essential.
You
And I think
commented
if you
it.
slot Tatum in to that Kawhi spot, I think he fits seamlessly. I think under Popovich, I think Tatum would be so nice. So not only that, but I just think with the Toronto, I mean, I do give him the Toronto ring. I mean, that was really, really impressive. Um, Slotting into that team pretty much seamlessly. The way that team was built, unbelievable. Um, but I think Tatum, I mean, if you give him the pieces, I think there should be no reason why he doesn't win a ring. I mean, if you're saying Giannis is winning a ring, Tatum's got to win at least 2.
I would love to have watched Tatum on that team and see how history unfolds, see what they do with, with Duncan and with Ginobili and with Parker and with Popovich, and to see Tatum on that, and then to see, you know, because all the drama that happened with Kawhi leaving with San Antonio, the chance of that happening with
Yeah,
Tatum probably aren't that high. So I mean, to see how long it goes, to see what they can do, that's
yeah,
that's that's like basketball. That's a part of history that I would love to have seen played out, like in a different, like an alternate universe type of thing.
yeah. And I mean, we both agreed kind of Kawhi when he was on the Spurs. I mean, he brought that defensive presence, that defensive edge. If it was Tatum on there, I mean, let's be real, Tatum is no slouch on defense. I mean, he's at least an average defender. Um, but he's kind of picked up the slack as years have gone on. So putting him on that Spurs team, I don't think it's if you're getting today, Jason Tatum today, I don't think it's that big of a drop off from Kawhi. Um, and that's talking about now Kawhi. So Kawhi back then, I mean, if you're putting Tatum in now, how he's playing now, slot him into that team, how Kawhi was back then, I mean, it's an improvement. So I don't know. I think they would repeat, but that's just
It
me.
was it was weird. The comments on the page if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I do. They were arguing against you. They were saying Kawhi.
No,
No, they were arguing Tatum.
no. Yeah, they were
All I
with
remembered
me.
is it was reversed. If they were with you, the opposite was the poll. I remember
Yeah,
that's what was
yeah. The
confusing
poll
me.
was opposite.
The
Yeah,
poll said Kawhi then. The poll was saying you were wrong, but everyone in the comments were saying you were right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody kind of in the comments, they kind of shared the same sentiment as me. They said, we feel like we've seen the best of Kawhi. Like
Except for
there's no
Victor.
going up. Yeah,
Except for Victor.
which is wrong. Yeah, he's wrong. He's wrong. I mean,
We're gonna
we've
have
seen
like
the eye test.
we're gonna have like a cousin Victor thing, like how Kimmel has his cousin Sal.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring in Victor that way.
Yeah, right. I mean, just the eye test, man. Nobody's saying that Kawhi is washed or whatever, but I do think we've seen his peak. I think now you can make a case because it's the Clippers and how they ran and, with Doc Rivers and all of that stuff. So we'll see kind of how that plays out as time goes on. But we've seen with the eye test, I mean, he's kind of, again, when you have PG just completely just going downhill when time matters in playoffs,
Pandemic
you can only expect you can only expect so much from Kawhi. You can't have him carrying the entire team. But at the same time, you do see him, and at times he's a little bit too passive. At times, his shot's not going down or whatever. So I think with him, I think we've kind of seen his peak. And with Tatum, I think it's the complete opposite. I think now he's really starting to kind of crack his potential.
and like bloom into the player that he's going to be.
Right.
Okay. Well,
I don't think we mentioned this, but in order to kind of give me some slack too, I don't think we mentioned this on the podcast, but I definitely told you when we drafted Tatum, I wanted Josh Jackson over him, which in hindsight.
Oh yeah. I remember
awful.
that. I remember that.
Hindsight is awful, but yeah, I'm glad we picked Tatum. Trust in Danny Ainge.
Trust in Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge knows
Except when it comes to bigs and point guards.
Yep, you need your own like bigs guy. Let Danny Ainge be the versatile player. Like he'll keep his eye out for the versatile players, and someone to keep his eye out for playmakers and big men.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was really funny, and I mean, like we said, it's leading to a boxing match coming soon.
Yeah.
To an arena near you.
And the funny thing is, because I think you commented on it or you made the post about it where you're like, it was kind of an assumption that both guys would argue for their teams, their respective teams. I'm not even a big Tatum guy. Like Jaylen Brown's my guy. So
you have a Jaylen Brown jersey.
Yeah, so Brown is my guy. Brown's going Hall of Fame. He went in 5 rings. Like he's doing it all. He's going big. That's Michael Jordan and reincarnated. No,
Shut up. You said winning 5 rings going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but Tatum wasn't really my guy. But I mean, I do think that those two in particular, I think they have the potential for those two is out the roof.
Not a lot of Boston fans that would take Brown over Tatum. I mean, when you think of Boston, when you think of the Celtics, you think of Tatum.
Yeah. No, I think Tatum, in terms of just kind of getting a bucket when you need it, closing player, I think Tatum's obviously the guy. But I think as an all-around player, I think Brown is. I think Brown edges him.
Interesting.
Because Brown's not afraid to attack. He can shoot the 3. He can shoot the mid-range. He added that little, step back to his game. I mean, he's improved drastically. And then defensively, I mean, he should be an all-pro defender. So,
I think the gap between them is smaller than people might realize.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I very quickly wanted to mention a story that I wrote that came out today. Actually, we're recording this podcast on Friday. It'll be released on Monday. But yeah, I did a story featuring a friend of mine and how he purchases jerseys. This came across in just casual conversation that we were having, and he was telling me about how he purchases jerseys, how he got one for his brother, and like the different jerseys that he has. And it kind of piqued my interest because I'm someone that I love basketball jerseys, but I always feel like they're overpriced. Not overpriced, but just not. I'm not someone that's willing to drop $120 for a jersey. I might do so for
Agree.
shoes, and I have done so for shoes. Like I'll go 80, I'll go 100, I'll go maybe a little bit over that for a pair of shoes. I feel like shoes are a little more practical because of how much you
Hmm.
really can use shoes. But jerseys, it's like I'll only wear them every once in a while, although they are very cool. I love them. If they were cheaper, I'd have so many more. But it's like he was telling me about how he saves a bunch of money and like the process of how he buys jerseys. And so that's what I wrote about. If you wanna check it out, it's on the website and it's available through social media and stuff. Um, but one of the first people I thought of was you. You have a large collection of jerseys. So I wanted to talk to you about what you do for your jerseys, and maybe show off a couple of jerseys that you have, and maybe even later on down the line we'll do some kind of showing off of like your best of the best jerseys, because I know sports fans, especially basketball fans, they love basketball jerseys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got a pretty extensive collection from when I grew up. Um, I mean, people knew me when I was in elementary school. Like I had a different jersey every day. Like I always wore jerseys. Um, as time went on, um, obviously back then, like I didn't really have a team, so I was just kind of picking the jerseys off of players who I liked or popular players or whatnot. Jersey design was a huge thing for me. Um, so it was just kind of like one of the spare of the moment type things. But as time went on, now personally, once I've kind of developed who I liked in terms of a team, in terms of individual players, now I only get Celtics jerseys. I
Hmm.
wouldn't mind wearing somebody else. Like, for example, if somebody had gifted me, an Embiid jersey or a Jokic jersey or
A
whatever,
Giannis
I would
jersey?
wear it. Let's not go that far.
No.
Uh, nah, nah. Especially not those Cream City jerseys. Oh
Yeah,
my
those.
God,
Yeah.
get a different nickname. Stop it. Um, anyways, yeah. So now I pretty much exclusively wear Celtics jerseys. Whether it's a throwback player or a current player or whatnot. But yeah, I do have two jerseys in particular. If you want me to share them, um,
Yeah, definitely.
just two jerseys that I think are kind of dope in terms of design and also like in terms of relevancy. So the first one, so this was always one of my favorites just based off design.
It's a very dope jersey.
So I love that. Artest, Meta World Peace. I love just the design of the Pacers jersey when they had the white and the green and the blue ones. Those were dope.
Hmm.
So this was, one that I probably picked out for design wise. And then this is another one of my favorites. This is a throwback. T
It's
Mac,
dope.
who was one of my favorite players of all time growing up.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of stuff like that, little things where, not really any like specific teams or whatnot, just kind of like unique players, unique styles, stuff like
My
that. So
personal my personal favorite of your jerseys that I've seen is your USA Charles Barkley jersey.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
I
that
have it in here.
jersey. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I've always thought that that was
yeah,
such a cool jersey. Because when you think of
yeah.
USA, you're thinking Johnson, Jordan, Bird, but that Barkley one, it
Hmm.
was it was really cool.
And I wanted that. This was around the time, I think that was in the 2012 Olympics where they started reissuing those jerseys, the Dream Team jerseys.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted a bird, obviously, because I'm a Celtics fan, and I couldn't find them. They had like Jordan, obviously. I think they had Pippen, um, and then they had I think Barkley and a couple of others or whatnot. But everybody got a Jordan one, so I'm like, all right, let's change it up a little bit. So I went with Barkley.
No, you're a visionary. What you did is you were like, you know what? I'm gonna bet on this guy who is not a master of the English language to be one of the best, be part of one of the best halftime shows and basketball analyst shows in the history of TV. You were
Yep.
you were ahead of your time in that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, if we're keeping it real, I mean, Barkley was so essential to that dream team too. So, I mean, I think people immediately think, Jordan or
The
whatnot.
big three of Jordan, Bird, and Johnson.
Matt, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but Barkley, I mean, is that's a safe pick too.
And if we go over that in a future podcast, I'm sure that jersey will come out for people to see.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I have a pretty vast collection. A lot of stuff that like you see it and you're like, wait, he played with them, or like what? Why would you even buy that jersey? So unique stuff like that. So, my collection, I probably have like about 50. So if you guys are interested, tap in, let us know, because I'm willing to show them off.
Cool. And I'm sure there are people that are out there that are willing to see it. All right. So next topic, and one that I know you are chomping at the bit to get to, is so like I said, we are doing this podcast Friday. Today is Friday and it's coming out Monday. So between then and now, the All-Star game will have already happened. So we'll probably talk about it at some point in the near future. But yeah, the podcast that's coming out directly after the All-Star game, we won't have like coverage on it really.
Yeah.
But what we do want to talk about was a late game substitution. Devin Booker will not be participating in the All-Star game, and his replacement was Mike Conley. And that has brought up a lot of debate, and a lot of people, including DeMar DeRozan, were upset that DeMar DeRozan was not the one chosen to replace him. I've seen some comments that were like, oh, they were looking for someone that would replace Devin Booker in the three-point contest and the All-Star game. And that's why they went with Mike Conley, because he could kind of participate in both better than DeMar DeRozan can. But I mean, either way, I feel like there's probably a way around that if you really wanted to get around that. And if they really wanted DeMar DeRozan to be that person that gets in there. And I mean, I'm going to let you take the floor with this. I just really quickly before you do want to add that I think that of especially Mike Conley and DeMar DeRozan, I probably would have gone with DeMar. And I mean, I love Mike Conley's first All-Star selection, which is awesome. I think he's a very talented player, very underappreciated, underrated player at times. And he had a lot of really good years with the Grizzlies. He's on one of the best teams in basketball right now with the Utah Jazz. So I mean, props to him. I don't think we really want to take anything away from Mike Conley and his accomplishments, but at the same time, we want to acknowledge the other players that we think were more deserving of being on that team.
Yeah. What are we doing, man? Like,
let it
Mike
be known,
Conley?
Gino. Let it be
Mike
known.
Conley?
Speak your truth.
Well, what is the guy's numbers? The guy is putting up what?
You said 16 and 5?
16 and 5? That's getting you an all-star nod. Come on, man. And we talked about this off air, but when the Hawks had 4 all-stars and Kyle Korver was averaging like 12 points and he got an all-star nod, like, what are we doing? Like, this is the same type of voting stuff in terms of like the MVP and like, so why not just put, instead of having an all-star game, why not just play the best team in the East and the best team in the West and just let them play an exhibition game? Because it seems like this is what they're doing. They're just picking teams from the best team or picking players from the best team regardless of their impact or their stats or how good they are as players, and they're putting them in the All-Star team. Like, this makes no sense, man. Like, I'm choosing DeMar over him. I'm choosing De'Aaron Fox over him. I mean, Fox is what, averaging at this point, I think like 22 and 7. Obviously, I think you see the team that he's on, and I'm sure in terms of the voting process that plays a role. But again, are
Having a
you
very good
picking
year
the
though.
best? Yeah, are you picking the
Yeah.
best players, or are you just picking players that just happen to be on the good teams? Like, that just it makes no sense to me. I'm picking Brandon Ingram over him. Like, I don't know, man. Like, Conley, that makes no sense whatsoever. And I like Conley. Let me end that
I
by
wish I
saying
had a
I do
cup of
like
tea
Conley
to just like be sipping on the
for
side
real.
while you're.
But
I
I
love
mean,
your
come
initial
on.
reaction. You just like, what are we doing?
Like,
That's funny.
seriously, I mean, this is the NBA seems like it's the only sport where, in terms of these voting processes, they always end up, something always is just bad. Whether it's an MVP or whether it's the All-Star, like, obviously somebody's always going to get snubbed. There's just not enough spaces for everybody to
Yep.
fit. But even aside from that, it seems like there's always something that goes wrong, or always something that's like, what are you guys thinking? That makes no sense. And here it is, man. Jeez. I mean, come on, This is, I
That's
mean, that's
funny.
such a bonehead decision, man.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I probably would have gone with another selection. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Hey, maybe Mike Conley surprises us, huh? Maybe he makes a game-winning shot in the All-Star game and he wins a 3-point contest.
Yeah, maybe. And I think one more point. I think you mentioned it before. Gobert and Mitchell were the last ones to be picked
For
in
their
terms
teams.
of the All-Star for their teams. So it's like they don't even want the two good players on the Jazz, and now you add a third one who's
That's
not
3
on their
players
level.
from
Like,
yeah.
come on, man. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I see your point. Not related to the topic of Mike Conley, but your what are you doing reaction was the exact reaction I had at the end of that game for the Nuggets when they all ran to the 3-point line rather than
Yeah.
cutting to the basket. I think that was my
Michael Porter
exact
Jr.
reaction
Just
at literally like 4 people on like in a perfectly spaced out on the 3-point line because they want to win the game or hit the 3, or people were blaming, oh, Steph Curry ruined the league for whatever reason you want to blame it on. I mean, everyone was in agreement, like, unless there is some huge reason why you absolutely do not want to go to overtime, why you want to be overtime or bust, someone cut to the damn basket. I hated that.
that's some like 2K stuff when you're playing like on Legendary, and like you expect your team to do the right things, but because the computer's like overpowered, they don't want to run to the basket. Like, come on.
And I put something on Instagram where I was like, man, if I'm Mike Malone, I am chewing those grown men out like they are 12-year-olds, because they acted like 12-year-olds who have never played basketball before in those couple seconds of their basketball career. Like, it was just those are the type of plays that, as pure basketball fans, it like you cringe inside.
That's one of those situations. If I'm Mike Malone, like, yeah, like I'm chewing them out, but I'm doing it like softly. It's one of those situations where it's like I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Like, you just kind of like one of those situations where all of those players go to sleep and they're like, damn, like I wish I could take back, that game or that last play. Not like angry where it's like, you know what, F him, blah 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 blah.
I wouldn't be able to
No, like
control
I want
myself. I'd be
you.
like that.
Yeah, like I
I
want you kind of like crying yourself to sleep that night.
I saw a post the other day that was like, when you walk into practice and there's no basketballs. You
Exactly.
know what you're doing that day if
Exactly.
you walk into practice and there's not a basketball in sight.
Exactly.
That's what I would. That's how Mike Malone should have showed up to the following practice. There's not a basketball in the entire gym.
Yep.
That's
And they think, what are we doing? We're playing football. We're going
no.
out to the field.
You're running till your legs give out.
Yeah.
That was such a funny post that I saw. All right, moving along. I saw a post the other day on Instagram again. Uh, it was about Devin Booker and the whole double team situation. I know you remember. I
Yeah.
believe it was last offseason, maybe even the offseason after. I'm not exactly sure the exact time of when it was, but he was in a pickup game and he was getting double teamed. And he was frustrated that he was getting double teamed. He was like, I've seen enough double teams in the regular season, man. And then someone showed a clip of Kobe on a show. I'm pretty sure it was a podcast or something like that. Rest in peace, Kobe. And he said, you know what? I'm just gonna pull it up because I do not want to put words in the mouth of the great Kobe Bryant. But he said something in complete opposite of
Yeah.
that, basically. Um, and here it is.
Double teaming you doing pickup? Oh, yeah. What do you think about? Like, say you gotta send another one. Yeah, you gotta send another one, man.
Hard.
That's such a
Hard.
cool one. That's such a cool response
Cold-blooded.
to say. You got to send the two isn't enough to guard, but you have to send three. Versus,
Cold.
yeah, don't I see enough of this? And
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah, no, I think again, I don't want to kind of get into this whole like Mamba mentality thing or whatever, because I do think that Devin Booker, obviously, he's an amazing player.
He is.
But like that just, yeah, like it just rubs me the wrong way. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said,
It's just like
it
bad
sounds
form.
like he's storming off the court because, you know, when I'll give you this example, you know, you were when you were small and you would play like pickup basketball games or whatever, and deep down inside of you, like you would always want somebody to guard you because like they weren't a really good defender. So you know, oh, I'm cooking this dude. And when they switch to another defender and like that defender's good, and deep down inside you're like, no, like I want to get the switch. Like I want to go back to like the easy defender so I can keep cooking them. That's what it seems like. It seems like a little kid that's not getting his way.
Like he was whining.
And yeah. So,
yeah.
And the whole thing is like, too, it's a pickup game. You're going to, and I'm sure, I don't remember the exact clip, but I'm sure there was other NBA players in that pickup game. So you're seeing those players again at some point during the season. Wouldn't you want to use that just like as more experience? Because like to me, like, okay, he's complaining about he sees too much of it. Okay, bro, then go to an empty gym and just shoot shots. Like what did you really like?
Exactly. It's really like, don't you want to improve? Aren't you trying to get better? If you see that in the regular season, don't you want to prepare for the regular season?
Exactly. Like, bro, if you want to shoot around, like y'all play horse. Like, nah, like there's defense now. I'm sorry, bro, but like you're getting guarded. So
maybe you get double team, someone's open. Work on your playmaking. Like
exactly. And that's something that Devin Booker is not known for. So okay, add that to your arsenal. Become an even better player. So yeah, I mean that just kind of it screams kind of immaturity, where like, you know, he's not getting his way, and we all know what Devin Booker is good for, and that's obviously scoring. Mm-hmm. So when you kind of take that away from him, now do you either bounce back and find other ways to be effective, or do you shut down? And from that video, I mean,
looked like he was shutting down.
Yeah, shutting down. And I mean,
shutting
you
down like
compare
a Windows
that
PC.
to a guy like Kobe, and he's going to find a way to be effective.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at those like cold-blooded players like Kobe, like Bird, like a double team ain't nothing to guys like those. They
Yeah.
welcome double teams. And it's like to hear, I see enough of that in the regular season. It's like, all right, it might not be who you are, but it feels like it's kind of a peek behind the blinds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it before. Yeah. There's a certain number of players that just kind of have that pedigree in them that know, okay, send a double team, send a triple team, send a quadruple team. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to be effective in one way or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. Go put a hoop on the back of your door and shoot in your room, bro. Like, if you don't want defense on you, come on. Like, that's ridiculous.
And that's the thing. People like to compare Devin Booker to Kobe Bryant. They do. I've seen that comparison many different times.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. That's even more ridiculous than Devin Booker storming off like a child. Ridiculous.
You're gonna piss off a lot of Devin Booker fans out there. Devin Booker is their messiah.
Yeah, no. Ooh, Kendall Jenner.
Ooh, yes, but no. Guys like Antoine loves Devin Booker.
Yeah, no, I like Devin Booker. Let's not get it twisted.
But he loves Devin Booker.
Devin Booker's amazing, but come on. That sounds like it's coming from somebody that's dating a Kardashian. Like that's typical. Like
heat. Two things. First thing.
Hold on, Antoine likes Ben Simmons too, huh?
Yeah, he does.
So he just likes the Kardashians. That's it.
Yeah, that really sounds about right.
Watch, he's like inside, like he's the biggest Tristan Thompson fan, but he don't want to admit it.
he's probably big Chris. He's Tristan Thompson and Chris Humphries.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's his all-star starting four. All right, I'm good.
All right, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of the Scoops Podcast. Thank you, Gino, for joining me for another episode of the Scoops Podcast.
My man, thank you so much.
Yeah, always fun to talk about basketball and the latest stuff that's going on. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and don't forget to reach for the stars. I'll edit that. Thank you guys for joining us, and don't forget to reach for the stars.
My man, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone. I'm sorry, I could do it. Damn, that's a lot of editing to do now. Mm-hmm. You spent that entire time laughing. All right, so sign off question.
Mm-hmm.
So you've watched The Office, and I'm sure a lot of our fans have watched The Office.
Yeah.
There is a episode in The Office where Michael Scott is on the roof, and he is trying to display to the warehouse people how dangerous working in the office can be compared to a warehouse. And he was going to jump off of the roof because of depression. So that's what he wanted to do. And he was going to jump originally off a trampoline. He thought that was too dangerous. And then he got a bouncy house, and he was going to jump onto the bouncy house. Pam and Jim discovered the bouncy house, and everyone was able to talk him out of doing it. But my question to you is, can you survive if you jump off the roof of that office building in particular onto that bouncy house? We're not talking about injury. You will definitely injure yourself. But the question is, will you live?
Okay, well, first, let's give some more context to the episode.
Okay, you want my research? Are you talking about my research?
No.
Okay,
it's
we'll
hilarious in the episode how I think everybody's walking out into the parking lot, and I think Pam and Jim know, and Pam says like, "Oh my God!" Like she tries to act like she's surprised, but she knows he's up there. Oh my God! is that Michael? I think he's gonna jump. And Jim's like, I think he's gonna jump too. And everybody else is like, all right, like whatever, like let him jump or whatever.
Hmm.
But no, to answer the question, no, I think you survive. You will get injured.
Yeah.
Depending, okay, so depending on the height. So
So here's where my
where,
research comes into play. So
okay,
I
okay,
did a deep dive on Google and on Reddit, and I got
okay.
different answers from different like places I was able
Mm,
to find. Some people said 2 stories minimum. Some people said 4 stories.
it's not two
It's
stories.
not 2 stories, but some people said
Yeah,
four. It's probably a little higher than
I think,
that. Um,
yeah,
but okay, so then here's the scenario. You're not jumping off for fun. You're on the top of the building, the roof. You have to jump. You have to. And you have that bouncy castle directly under you where the trampoline originally was. They put it behind like some trees and stuff to hide it. That's too far. I'm talking about a direct straight down jump. There's no way
yeah,
that you miss the roof of the bouncy house. You have that roof of the bouncy house and the inflated part of the bouncy house to land on. You survive.
yeah, yeah, you survive.
I
I
mean,
mean, you have a chance to survive hitting concrete from four
oh,
stories
people
tall.
survive stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a good chance at survival. Like, you're not going to die jumping into the bouncy house.